To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
Turning 65 or new to Medicare? You can get a healthcare plan with the freedom and flexibility to meet you where you are. With Humana's Medicare Advantage PPO plans, you can see any doctor in the country who accepts Medicare, including specialists, with no referrals. Plus, you can go in and out of network for the same copay for doctor's visits. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. Humana is a Medicare Advantage PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another remix episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin Lundberg, and I'm sitting here with my right hand, Vanessa Mendel.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to do this remix episode.
I know. It's the top of the year. And we decided to bring back an episode that I think is like one of our best. I mean, I think we've had a few really, really good ones, but we are about to dive into A Beautiful Mind, which is such a great movie in a rewatch, and dive in with its writer, Akiva Goldsman, who's also like just the most incredible producer. So he really takes us through the entire experience because he was on set the whole time.
It's such an amazing movie because I feel like I can watch it once a year, which I do. And even though it's very dark and it's dramatic and intense, it's so well done and it's so entertaining at the same time. It's just such a smart movie. It kind of lives in its own special category. And it's so fascinating to listen to Akiva talk about how the whole thing came together, because it really has stood alone, as a culturally significant movie.
It really has. So let's get going.
Let's do it.
I still see things that are not here. I just choose not to acknowledge them. Like a diet of the mind, I choose not to indulge certain appetites.
Hello, loyal listeners, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin Lundberg, and I'm here with my right-hand woman, Becca Camerata. Bex, we're back, babe.
We're back.
After a short respite, we told you guys we made this movie, as every movie does. It nearly killed us, but we are rising from the dead and so excited about today's episode. I'm a huge fan of Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah.
He wrote A Beautiful Mind, which is the film we're about to focus on today, which is one of my favorite films of the early aughts. Like, really blew my mind in terms of burying a secret and you don't discover it until the end. And I think that's a real work of great writing and a great mind. Mm-hmm. The Sixth Sense did that. You were always, there were a few movies that were like, oh my God, have you seen this? And everyone would go to the theaters and no one wanted to spoil it.
You didn't want to tell the secret.
Yeah. And A Beautiful Mind was certainly that in spades. So Akiva won the Academy Award for the script of this. Mm-hmm. And the film also won Best Picture. And so Akiva was a writer, but I think it was really where he cut his teeth as a producer. He's become as prolific a producer as he is a writer, and that doesn't always happen. I think writers are often sort of relegated to, writing the thing and then being left behind.
Yeah.
But I feel excited to hear how he kind of worked his way into the sort of producing game on this film. And I think it was through the sort of warmth that Ron Howard and Brian Grazer had just as filmmakers themselves. So I'm excited to get going and hear the whole story.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that really, really affected me when I saw it. And when I was doing research and found out that he was a writer when I had known him more as a producer, it is very rare and very hard to be both. And that this movie was kind of that point in his career where he started to do both. I'm very curious to hear how that happened and just kind of hear some of the behind the scenes of this film that's really still very magical to watch, honestly.
And just hearing Russell Crowe at the height of his powers, that's going to be fun. So let's get going.
Let's do it.
Okay. Akiva Goldsman, it is so wonderful to meet you. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, you're very kind. You have to get out more, but you're very kind.
So we could have chosen so many movies that you've written and produced. You're incredibly prolific. But today I'd love to talk about A Beautiful Mind. I've read up a little bit about your process and how you got the job. I want you to start from the very beginning, your first memory of it, and we're going to go through the whole filmmaking process.
I first became aware of it in Vanity Fair. Actually, I think that's how it started.
Imagine wasn't even involved. You had just sort of read it on your own. Okay.
No. I got it as a producer. The way it works, if a property, hot or otherwise, was about to go to market, it was typically paired with producers who had deals with studios.
Right. So they would break it up for their individual deals.
Now you'll see more frequently somebody has it for the town. But then it was very much kind of slice and dice. So you sort of lobbied and batted your eyes in order to get it for your studio, because, several people have, obviously studios have deals with a bunch of producers.
So who was controlling the rights to the book? Was it the writer?
I keep thinking that somehow Graydon Carter is in this. So it's Vanity Fair is in this, and maybe we're buying it from Vanity Fair, in fact. Maybe we're buying the rights to the article. Yeah, I don't know, because
it was 20 years ago.
Well, and also I didn't get it,
Right.
Like, they gave it to me for Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers was like, yeah, no, we don't. Yeah, what?
Yeah.
No. So I failed at selling it to Warner Brothers, and at the same time, Brian Grazer and Ron Howard succeeded in selling it to Universal as producers. So it became an Imagine production, and I had run into Brian a couple of times, never Ron. I was young, and there were the occasional fix-it jobs, and I think there was at least one of those for Imagine at some point before this. So, I was aware of Brian. Brian was aware of me.
And Akiva, give us a little context. At this point, you've had quite a bit of success as a screenwriter. You've written some of these Grisham adaptations, and you're like, you're kind of a guy on the come. You're like,
I'm a guy on the come, but I've also, been, it turns out a career is like a roller coaster. So, I sort of came out of the gate pretty hot, and then, and so my first of, several rises and falls and rises, I have gotten some pretty good attention, at least in situ, during the time for Batman Forever, doing this sort of Joel Schumacher run. So I've done The Client, Batman Forever, Time to Kill, but now Batman and Robin comes out, and it is reviled. So
this is the Clooney Batman.
This is the Clooney Batman. They probably all apologize for it. So, although it has a little renaissance now in the world of the Twitter, which is kind of hilarious.
No, I've been noticing it popping back up for some reason. Chris O'Donnell as Robin.
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Chris O'Donnell. Yeah. Joel said that there were many young men who said to him they came out when they saw Chris in that. So
it has its purpose.
Yeah, we aim to please. We aim to serve. And so there I am. I have just gone to Mexico, where I have produced a movie. I'm now really wanting to be sort of more active as a producer, and so I've produced a movie called Deep Blue Sea, which actually has in it a moment very much akin to when you realize that the people aren't real in A Beautiful Mind, which is when the shark eats Sam Jackson 30 minutes into the movie, and people are like, what the fuck? But in fairness, I take credit for both of those ideas. So we come back, I come back, call my agent, who is also a woman named Risa Gertner, who is also Brian Grazer and Ron Howard's agent, because that's useful. And I say, can I go meet with Brian? And I go and I meet with Brian, and I pitch him this idea I have for the script for A Beautiful Mind.
So you've already got that thing worked out. The spoiler alert. It's 20 years old. Spoiler alert. But
yeah. But
the people aren't
real. Worked out.
Okay.
That everybody is that we're going to build an environment which is subjective. I remember I had this idea, and I never have idea for shots, and the shot's not in the movie. But I had this idea that I'm like, at one point you pull up over like an institution, which is also hardly in the movie, and everybody has an imaginary person with them. And Brian, and like I'm drawing and I draw.
Scope of that.
Anyway,
too expensive.
Maybe. I'm very enthusiastic because, as I used to talk about a lot, one of the very first group homes for what used to be called emotionally disturbed children, which was childhood schizophrenia and childhood autism back when those diagnoses were grouped together, which makes no sense now, but it then was in my house.
I read that and I can't believe that. You have to tell me. I mean, your parents must have been saints. I mean,
they were complicated, as we all are. My mother was a Holocaust survivor. And,
oh my God. Growing up in New York City?
Growing up in Brooklyn Heights, when it was really not a good neighborhood.
Not chic.
Not chic. The opposite chic. They were going to run a ramp from the BQE through it. In fact, I remember picketing on my father's shoulders walking down Atlantic Avenue to what is now the Barclay Center.
Oh my God.
So they got a brownstone, very cheap brownstone, which was apparently a brothel for sailors, a male brothel for sailors. Yeah.
They bought it from someone who was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's all cut up into little rooms. And so they start taking in these kids. And my mother, God bless her, when she was alive, and she lived to 93, she was sort of she was an awesome chick. I love her to death. But she would always write about somebody hanging the baby out the window or banging the baby against. Well, I'm the baby in this story.
No, stop.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, Mom, did it occur to you that, honey, shop.
But was there truth to that, or was she a writer, natural born writer also?
Both. But where there really is truth is I had no context for what was normative. So fundamentally, and I still don't, I mean, it's taken me many years to understand what typical human behavior is, because nothing is atypical to me. Because I would see, like, I didn't know that the person who didn't speak was supposed to speak, or that the person who saw like a white horse floating through the window, outside in the second story, like, okay, why not? So subjective reality became very clear as a sort of foundational way I see the world, which is, been really interesting, very problematic, and sometimes really wonderful. Yeah. Because I judge nothing. Like, this is the funny thing about me. I'm the least judgmental person.
Oh, I love it.
So I go to Brian. I think I grovel. I think it's groveling.
Sure. I mean, when you really want something, it's worth it. The number of stories I've heard like that.
Yeah. I mean, I actually remember in retrospect, it is kneeling, but I want to say that in truth, I tilted off the chair while drawing on a table onto my knees. So, yeah. So anyway, like, literally, groveling. So,
and had they been taking many pitches at this point, or were you sort of first to the gate and kind of nailed it?
Pretty first to the gate, because, I had it as a producer. So I was sort of really on top of it. And, and Brian said, great. And I then go, and now I'm posting Deep Blue Sea. Right. Yeah. And I'm posting it. And years, before that, I had done a draft of The Sum of All Fears. I had done it for Harrison Ford. It was pre-Ben Affleck. And in the book, and very much in the script I wrote, Jack Ryan is drunk and quits. Right. And so it was really dark. And everybody was like, yeah, we're not making that movie. So I'm posting, and I've told Brian I have to post Deep Blue Sea.
Okay.
And so I'm
meaning you can't start writing until you're done.
I can't start writing until we lock the movie and we test the movie. And I will never forget, we have these never do test scores really give you a clear inflection point. But this one did. They were all, Saffron Burrows must die. So we went back and we did a reshoot, and poor Saf gets killed, and we saved LL, and but it's it's labor intense. The other card I remember is, and by the way, there are no credits on the movie yet, right? Which in Pasadena, and the other card says everything Akiva Goldsman touches turns to shit. I'm like, we even know.
Stop. That's an inside job that put in there to just.
But that's the thing, right? In Hollywood, people are like waiting to go to previews so they can.
Oh my God! And there were no previews, so it was an insider.
Oh yeah.
There was no credits. Right.
Somebody knew. But so anyway, so we fixed the movie. It's taken a lot of time. So meanwhile, Hollywood continues to proceed without me.
Yeah.
And an article is published that says Paul Attanasio, wonderful writer, will now be writing Sum of All Fears, the new version of it, with Bill Alden Robinson is going to be directing. And so so there's a picture of me and a picture of Paul and a picture of Harrison. And by the way, it really is an article about the fact that I was fired a long time ago. Right? But I think Brian just sees the pictures and he's like, he's not working on the script. Fire
No.
him. Oh, yeah. So I get a call from 2 agents.
Even though you had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but the truth is I wasn't working on this. I was working on Deep Blue Sea. And I think Brian, when he said yes to me, was probably like, sure, whatever. Then it really did take, in fairness to Brian, I think he thought I meant a month. And it was like 4 months and I hadn't started writing.
Okay.
So I get a call from 2 agents. They called together, and like for years after it, I said, "Never can I."
When you get 2 agent calls, something either really good or really bad is about to happen.
Right. It's not really good.
Yeah,
so they were calling to say that look, that they got a call from Brian, and this beautiful mind thing just wasn't going to work out. And I was like, "Wait."
Oh my God!
But the truth is, like, I haven't really done much. Right? I've had the idea.
Right.
So now I sit there and I'm like, fuck. And I'm like trying to come up with something to send him. Right. And poor Rebecca, my, soon not yet wife, we're sitting there and I'm working on the thing. And I'm cramming like a bad test.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
and I'm not good at that. And I write a thing and I literally feel like we faxed it. I mean, is that possible? There were faxes? And Brian was like, no. And Karen Kahila, who runs Imagine at that point, Karen basically says, look, he's, Brian, he's very clear and, he follows his gut. I said, well, I want to prove to him that I can do this because I can. And Karen Kahila and a younger executive, but it was really Karen and I sit in a room for, 10 days.
Wow.
And we break the story. And it was one of those extraordinarily productive, amazing, creative collaborations. And Karen is, credited as an executive producer on the movie, but she really produced the movie along with Brian.
Wow.
And Karen is a genius. Wow. And she really was at Imagine for all, for that great run. She was part of that period at Imagine. And Brian really relied on her. Brian really trusted her.
Wow,
and
amazing.
So she and I sort of finally we get Brian says, okay, we go to his house and I pitch him the story. Karen's sitting beside me.
Okay.
And he cries. And Karen's like, you got it.
Well, I'm crying. Now I'm crying.
So now I go and I write the script and I put my whole heart into it. I just pour everything I have into it.
Oh my God.
And deliver it to, I took it to her house. I delivered it to, I remember I was trembling and I handed it to her. And
like a paper form, you printed it out with Brad's and you handed it to her. Sure.
Oh yeah. Of course. In a manila envelope. That's how scripts work. That's how they exist. And then when you were lucky, they put it in the agency binder. You're
totally.
Like,
when you got a CAA cover, it was super special.
I gave it to Karen and Karen gave it to Brian and my agent, and everybody reacted very positively. People were like, that's a pretty terrific script. So, so it's sort of funny because there's a little chapter that always gets left out of this. So Brian gives it to Robert Redford and Tom Cruise, and they agree to do it. Redford to direct, Cruise to star.
Oh.
And there's an article that comes out in Variety, which I remember this because they leave out my name. I couldn't matter less. And I'm like, this is the closest this fucking thing's ever going to get to being made. And I don't even get an article. Whatever happens internally, I don't know. But Ron, who you'll notice, is not in this story at all, right? This is all
so far he's not even a part of this. Yeah.
He's doing his thing. And somehow, I don't know, Ron goes, oh, what's that script you gave to those guys? Or some version.
I can imagine that headline might ruffle Ron's feathers a little bit. Yeah.
And my guess is Ron had seen it, but hadn't read it, or, because Imagine has so much development, right? So Ron reads it and he's like, hey, I like this. And I go and I start my first set of meetings with Ron Howard. And then Ron and Karen and I. So
Redford and Tom just go away?
They go away. It's Imagine's project. Ron's ready to do it right now. He's finishing Fringe. Tom's not available to sell here. And,
there was probably an awkward conversation or two.
I'm guessing, but also you have to remember at this point, it's not a greenlit movie, right? Until it's a greenlit movie, these things shift around a bit. And so there was a little room. It's not like it was like, okay, we're starting Thursday. No, I'm going to.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was going to develop it with somebody. So now it's going to be Ron.
Imagine if you had suddenly learned that the people, the places, the moments most important to you were not gone, not dead, but worse, had never been.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
So now I go to meet Ron Howard.
First meeting?
First meeting.
Okay.
And I just remember saying the same thing to him for about 2.5 years, which is, when is the other shoe going to fall? When is the asshole that you must have hiding inside you revealed? And Ron would just go, kind of what you see is what you get. He remains one of my dearest friends. He's literally it's impossible what an extraordinary
He's
person.
Opie. I mean, he is the sweetest, kindest.
But also with a little bit, like, sometimes I'll just make him say fuck just to watch. You know what I mean? Or I will in public tease him about having a boo snorting habit just to watch, because he's so, what he really is. And, I'll detour on Ron because I can't not. Literally a family guy. Like, he is a family person. His parents did this thing when they raised him that he then did. I remember being at Ron's house and Bryce is like sitting on the counter. She's like 15. She's kicked, her feet aren't touching her. She's like, Dad, lend me money for a car. He's like, nope, you got to earn it. He's just that guy, right? He's decent and kind.
Yes.
And so talented and so collaborative. I learned so much from him.
Never lost his temper. Just always just.
Oh, I've never seen him lose his temper. I've never seen.
And by the way, he makes great art. I mean, I think there's this theory in Hollywood that you have to like lose it and scream and yell in order to get the best art. And I don't believe that's true.
I really don't think it's true at all. I think, in fact, it's antithetical to feeling creative and being productive. And fundamentally, we have to feel safe to make. And Ron does that. He creates that space for people. And Karen and Brian and Ron and I continue then, to develop the script. And then we start casting, and we're sort of not quite sure who. And now Tom is no longer available. And and so now we have this whole thing of who's it going to be. And all I'm doing is running around with lists of actors, asking Ron to promise me that even if it gets to that person, he'll still make it.
So, Akiva, you're kind of producing. I mean, in a way, often the writer is just like, bye-bye. You're not going to have any input on cast or anything like that. But you're kind of...
I'm in it. Because Schumacher trained me this way. Schumacher used to say to me, "Hon, sweetie, Tommy Lee and Susan are in the trailer and they're fighting about this dialogue. Go fix it." Right? And so, that's how I learned. Every Schumacher movie I made, Beautiful Mind. I mean, the movies where I've been on set every day. So, which is why I became a producer, because I was trained to be one. I knew it all by osmosis, right?
Oh my God, I love this.
So it's awesome. And so we're prepping, and then Russell agrees to do it. And I have always said to Ron in this process, look, I would love to be there. It's so important to me. And about 2 weeks before rehearsal, which is, we're shooting in New Jersey, is where the stage space is for Beautiful Mind were. It was an abandoned military base. And Ron calls me and he says, hey, I've been thinking, I've been talking to Todd, who is his line producer, Todd Hallowell, who's now sort of does giant movies, but that was done a lot of movies with Ron. And maybe you'll just come for rehearsal, but maybe you won't come for the shoot. And like literally I hear my heart crash.
Because previously had he been like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, sure. Okay.
Yeah. I think Todd had said, look, by the way, this movie was tighter than, it wasn't made for $1 zillion.
It was 30. As I read it, it was made for 30, but that could be more, it could be less, but not $1 zillion.
That's right. And people were used to $1 zillion, right? Especially those guys. And Russell just made Gladiator, and so this was going to be run and gun a little bit more.
And Todd didn't want to put you up. Is that what it was, or was it?
By the way, that's what I used to tell him. But no, I think what Todd was like, Todd was like, I got to shoot this fast, and I don't some guy sitting there going, well, what if?
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, could I just come for a week and we'll see how it goes? And I literally was on the movie week to week, waiting to get fired, the whole fucking movie, like waiting for somebody to send my ass home. And finally, at the end, Todd writes me a check for my per diem and for the rental. But like, I was there on my own. And
no, wait, you mean literally you were like just on your own dime, sort of?
Yes. Yeah, yes, I loved it. It was, it was everything.
Oh my God, you're amazing.
And, Ron and I have made a bunch of movies together since. What's great about Ron is he knows what he wants. He does the thing. And then he's like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Anything you want to try? Anything we missed? What do you think? And then sometimes he'll say, he'll go, yeah, no. And sometimes he'll go, oh, interesting. And you know what I mean? And that's great. And that's, that is how to make collaborative art, right? You actually have to be, as Will Smith always says, my dad's got a barn, let's put on a show. And that's right. It's got to feel like that. Like we're all there doing a thing together.
And so can I just ask you about how that process evolved over time? Like, were you immediately sitting at Village, or would you like stand sort of far away and sort of start to get closer and closer over the weeks? Like, I'm just curious about how you guys evolved that dynamic,
I think it evolved over rehearsal because, Ron had, I have this funny, I remember we were developing the script, and Ron is a really good developer. Like he gets in there, right? But because he's a good developer, he also then is pretty writer reliant. Like it's not threatening to him. You know what I mean? Because he knows the script, but he also figures you're going to know it better, right? So he'll say a thing like, when we're in rehearsal, Russell will do, well, mate, let's do it like this. And Ron will go, why did you write it like that? And then I'll say, well, I wrote it like that. And then we'd all start talking about it, right? And so that becomes a process. But I do remember before that, there was a scene, Ron kept saying, I want you to write a proposal, a date scene. And I was like, I can't write a date scene, Ron. It doesn't. And so then I wrote a date scene, and it wasn't a proposal scene yet. He kept sending it back. And I said to Karen, what's the problem? She goes, he's never been on a date. Because, the truth is he got married. He's been with Cheryl since he was 16 years old. So I'm like, no, really, that is how. So we turned it into a proposal scene, but he's in it, right? So he's in the story with you and, and is building it with you. So then he likes to have, this is something I always quote him on. When actors I remember the first time Russell started changing a line on the day. And I said to Ron, do I care? We had gotten to that point where I was like, do I care? Am I supposed to care? And he said, well, here's my theory. If it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, the way you wrote it and the way they say it, let them do it the way they say it because they'll do it better. And if, in fact, the words are, then you got to go. And, and then he said, go tell him.
Interesting. That's a brilliant little nugget.
He's a genius. He's like, if I could just make movies with Ron Howard for the rest of my natural born life, I would.
So let me ask you a little bit, because like Russell Crowe at that time was top of the heap. And I remember hearing he could be a little truculent. Did you find that with this part, he kind of really trusted the script and Ron and you, or was it a little bit of a back and forth?
So, Russell and I are friends, and we've made a bunch of movies, a few movies together now. And I was terrified of him. The first On a Beautiful Mind, I was terrified. He's very male, right? He really is. Like he's like, right, but he's fun to drink with, and he plays a good guitar, and he's a great singer. So, like the hair down part is great. For me, I was there provisionally.
Yep.
Russell leaves rehearsal to win an Oscar. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so that all just happened. Like he flew back, won an Oscar, came back.
Right.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Right. We're watching on TV, all of us going, okay, now Monday we started. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
The thing about Russell, it took me a long time to realize this, is he understands performance and his own performance in a way that is extraordinary. And he's as brave can be. What I mean by that is he'll try it any different way.
Wow.
Any way.
Wow.
By the way, standing on his head. So if you say, and I watched this with him and Ron would say, well, let's do it again. And Russell would say, what do you want that I didn't give you? And then if you have an answer, and by the way, if you are full of shit or you weren't watching the last take, or God forbid you say to him, because I directed him once in Winter's Tale, God forbid you say to him, I want that. And he said, and he just gave it to you and you did. That's where, right?
Yeah, shit hits the fan.
It's okay. But you can see how if you're learning him and he's learning you and you're not utterly straight about performance, he's going to just
rip you apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not even. He doesn't really rip you apart. He just shuts you out.
Okay.
You know, like his thing on Beautiful Mind, he was not, I mean, he's a big presence, but he's not big in the way of, like, he's not a screamer. Yeah. He's, you know, it was much more like, oh, if he thought somebody was a moron, you knew, they knew, right? Without any words said. And it was just like, oh, because he, you know, he's the center of the object anyway. He's hugely charismatic. And being, you know, number one on a call sheet brings with it the sort of, you know, the implied power that comes with, you know, it's kind of extraordinary, but also it's part of what pulled that movie through because it shot it in sequence, which never happens.
Crazy.
And Russell tracked that performance with me, with Ron, from soup to nuts over a long period of a fictionalized life, you know, and also was required to have sort of different cohorts throughout the whole thing. The first act, and then, you know.
I think a lot of precise actors, they're like, if we got it in 3, I'm not doing 50 takes. And, you know, I've recently worked with a couple who are just like, 3-take Johnny. Unless you're telling me something very specific, I gave it to you. This is all I've got. Was he somewhere on, you know, on the spectrum of?
No, I think he'll do it forever if you have an interesting thing to ask for. Like, he's not, you know, and, you know, something that, you know, is also always fun is then at the end you go, whatever you want, right? And then you just see something, right? You know what I mean? Now, they've been working with you on what they want throughout any, right? But still at the end, you know, try one wacky or whatever. But no, Russell is, so I'll tell you specifically how this informs this movie. There is a requirement for a kind of hiding of mental illness for the object to function, right? It's a little bit of it's a hat trick. But we didn't really know, and you know, and Ron was very thoughtful about how much is too much. Should there be any signs? Should there not? So almost every piece of that movie has, like, we have dysregulated and regulated takes. And so really, like, Russell would play the scale. He'd say, okay, Ronnie, now let's do one where, Ron would say, well, try one where, you know, and he'd just go back and forth up the scale of regulation and symptomatic regulation and dysregulation in order to then be able to build the arc correctly in editorial.
Oh,
and
my
Russell
God.
was not just game for that. He was, you know, an author of that. And that engine is why the performance is so stunning.
I met a girl.
No, a human girl?
Homo sapien.
A biped?
Yeah, and contrary to all probability, she finds me attractive on a number of different levels.
God, that's wonderful.
Skipping cold and flu season is plan A. But if you do get sick, be prepared for plan B with Kleenex lotion tissues. Kleenex lotion tissues moisturize skin, helping prevent the added discomfort of red, irritated skin on top of your cold and flu symptoms. So this cold and flu season, grab Kleenex lotion tissues. Visit Kleenex.com to learn more and buy now. For whatever happens next, grab Kleenex.
Well, there's no accounting for taste, is there?
There is no Liam Parcher. It's in your mind. You understand, baby? You're sick.
So the shoot goes relatively smoothly. It sounds like you guys are like all just talented adults and like you get through.
The only day that I will still not be able to unsee, and I can't really watch the movie in the way that I can't listen to the podcast, is I don't know why or how, but one night, I don't know why we all end up in Russell's room. and I don't know why there are guitars or why there is so much booze or why each person feels compelled to stand up and sing their national anthem, depending on what country they're from. And I'm calling Ron at 4 a.m. He's coming up and we're just,
no.
Oh yeah. So now it's the next morning and it's a scene where Jenny is pushing a baby in a stroller and Adam Goldberg says, "How are you?" And she says, "Oh, he's doing well." And he goes, "No, I asked how you are." And for a person who is really supposed to be, she looked perfect because we were all so hungover that morning that we literally, I remember getting to craft service and like this person next to me goes, "God, did you hear those assholes last night? They kept everybody in the hotel." I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah." And so probably we should have disheveled her hair, but we were all just like listening to that humming sound that you get when you're trying to get the booze to go away.
That is so funny. Yeah. Well, by the way, let's talk about her a little bit. First of all, her performance was extraordinary. I forgot that she had won the Academy Award for it. She's so strong. She's so gorgeous. It really is. She did look so beautiful throughout the thing, which was part of her appeal. I just remember the scene where he sort of like goes to touch her back. How did she come to, I know there were many, many women up for this role.
There were. It's funny. We met with a lot of people. Now, here's a weird sort of intersection, which is Jenny and I went to there's a school in New York called St. Anne's, which was
of course
K through 12. And both Jenny and I went there.
Okay.
Although I'm like one full set of 4 years.
Jenny being Jennifer Connelly, loyal listeners. Yeah.
Yes. And so I had sort of known her sort of as a little kid running around.
Okay. Oh my God.
And also because St. Anne's is small, everybody sort of vaguely knows the other people who went on into showbiz. So, and she comes in and we had met with a lot of women. I say we because Ron had invited me into that process.
Oh my God, incredible.
And Jenny came in, her son Kai, who is now an extraordinary adult, was a little boy. And she referred to Kai and Kai's father is what I did with my summer vacation. And we were like, "Okay, so what's out?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm on my own." And, and it was very funny. And she was unbelievably charming and she's so smart. And she talked about the role. And that's, again, it was like one of those, because obviously Jenny is wildly talented.
Yes.
But it's sort of in a weird way, the conversations about it became as dispositive as anything else. And she's probably smarter than all of us, honestly. She went to Yale, but she really is, right? And she understood the character in a way that was certainly better than I did. Alicia Nash was she was also very beautiful, and that was actually quite true, and understood a bunch of things and speculated about a bunch of things and sort of became part of the collaborative force that sort of created the movie. And I had written the role of the best friend for Robert Downey.
Oh.
For a bunch of reasons that didn't work out. And so I was crestfallen because I think he's amazing. And a casting director sent a tape and it was the scene from...
Are you going to say Knight's Tale?
Yes. And it's the scene with Paul naked walking down and we're just seeing it. The movie hasn't come out yet. She sends it to her. And Ron looks at me and he goes, "Can he be English?" And I went, "He can now." And we just redid it for Paul.
Oh, brilliant. I feel like Jennifer and Alicia probably had similarities in that their beauty is, when he first walks into that classroom, she's the most beautiful. First of all, one of the only women, but one of the most beautiful, striking figures. So your eye immediately in this like sea of white guys goes to her, right? And then she does this thing and it's like, there's no way that can be true. It's almost a distraction. And I feel like probably Jennifer Connelly could really relate to that because she is so strikingly beautiful, but she's really, really smart. And I just feel like it was the perfect gaze, right? Like you're like, oh, sure. But it was true.
Yeah, it was true. And I see this with Jenny. She's so beautiful and she's so smart and she's actually in real life a little shy. and people don't know what to do with it. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody assumes that if you're that pretty and you're that, and then you're on, you know what I mean? And I think that, there was some of that in Alicia too, like this sort of like, you're watching the world, then you sort of extrude into the world. And I think being a celebrity or being a famous actor or actress, for such a long, you have to sort of learn that ability to step out, step back, step out, step back. I think that, I actually think she used that in her performance as Alicia in an interesting.
Okay, so we get through the shoot, the edit, Ron just goes away with his editor. Do you weigh in? Do you come into the edit suite at all? Like, talk to me about that process.
So,
given your very unique sort of relationship.
I go away.
Here. Yeah.
I go away, right? And I'm just wondering how it's going. And I call him now and then. And I'm away with some friends in Maine. And Ron calls. Remember, we have landlines, right? So I get a call. And he says, hey. I'm like, hey. He goes, so I'm going to send you the movie on a cassette tape.
Oh,
tell me
a
what you
VHS.
think.
We're going to give you VHS. Yeah, okay.
See if you have any thoughts. What we put in, what we left out, what we put in. I'm like, I get a binder, right? By now, the script is 375 colors, right? Because every day, I love a color anyway. And in the old days, scripts were paper. Every time you released a revision, you have it. So I think and I never like repeating a color. It's like a thing I learned on Schumacher. So the thing's a fucking rainbow, right? I think we were at 27 colors. I get the binder. I get the script sent to me in Maine, FedEx, and I have the cassette tape, VHS, next to one of those where it's built into the TV.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I say, what didn't we? Oh, here's the show. Oh, I see where you cut that. What if you cut that instead?
Yeah.
Like, it's enough. And so I come back and I'm like, I really took notes. He was like, great. And I send it back. I send it to him. And now I'm like, he's never going to talk to me again. And he calls and he goes, hey, these have been pretty helpful. Why don't you come on in? Let's talk about them. Let's go through the movie and
cool.
Tell me. I said, we did a bunch of them. We didn't do a bunch, but I want to know what you were thinking. And
not threatened, just knows it's good. It's a process. It can only make it better. I love that.
So not threatened, just like a mensch.
Yeah.
And so we do that. And so begins this process that I've had with Ron on every movie we've ever made, where we just sit and he'll go, come on in. Right. And he'll run it, here's, what do you think? And sometimes it's been utterly redundant for him. And sometimes it's been really useful, I think, for the movies,
So you're able to sort of contribute into the edit and we get the film in a good place. Do you screen it for the studio? Do you test it? What are the next sort of steps? Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, we do all those things. And ultimately, I just remember the last time I watched it, just before it came out, thinking, oh my God, no one would ever say any of these words. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're so over the thing that you're just like, oh God. And then it came out, and it wasn't like today where it all happens and it's Rotten Tomatoes and all that. It was, a few reviews came out and people really liked it and started to build it.
Did it win the weekend? Do you remember the Friday it came out?
It was never number one.
Was there ever a moment where you were like, this is a movie about a mathematician. This is going to be hard to get a wide audience in?
Russell used to say it all the time. Russell used to have this, because, we ended up on panels all over the place, right? Russell's shtick was always, well, Universal was really happy to have Ron Howard, Russell Crowe, and an Akiva Goldsman. He was being nice. They were just happy to have Ron and Russell. And they just wished it wasn't about a schizophrenic mathematician.
Yeah.
But there was truth to that. I mean, Universal was great to support it. Stacey Snider was amazing, and she really was a champion for it because it was not an easy movie to make. And I'll tell you a fun story about the movie, the rollout. So we had what was called limited release then, right? There was like a slow rollout and not too small, but sort of big and then expanded a little bit, I think. But in any case, it was at the end of the year. So we were actually rolling out the movie during Oscar season. We were one of the last ones to try to get in under the wire. So you see that flood every year in December, right? And I think we were the end of November and through December. Again, global openings are not a thing then. So we're in Germany for the European premiere the day the Oscar nominations are announced. And we're doing press. right? We're all doing like press conferences, and junkets and interviews. And then we take a break at lunch to watch the nominations on television. And only in retrospect do I think, what a fucking ridiculous thing to do. We're supposed to go back and have another, thank God we all get nominated. Jenny and I are literally just sitting in the lobby of the hotel.
No way.
And then we all get nominated, and then we go back to have press.
But did you feel a little bit of wind in your sails? Like, you may not have done that if the film had been like a bomb.
Oh, no.
You guys were like, you guys were making money. You guys were like extraordinary.
Well, it never made a lot of money. Beautiful Mind is not a big money maker.
According to my records, it made $350 million worldwide, which
is great for a drama. It's great for a drama. It is. But, today movies make that in a weekend.
Sure.
But
this isn't a Marvel film. I guess it just goes back to like, scale and expectations.
Right. Right. But, as Russell, I saw Russell quoted recently as saying, that Beautiful Mind doesn't get made today. But yes, we had wind in our sails, and then we got really drunk, and there's like a theme here, but not really drunk. But I think Ron actually danced on a bar in Germany. Maybe.
Oh my God.
Maybe that happened.
Seeing Ron Howard dance on a bar in Germany, I would pay good money for that.
Oh, it's worth every penny.
But then you went on to win. Jenny won. It won Best Picture. I mean, what a sweep. It's incredible. You must have just like been walking on air.
It was amazing. And because I was not someone who thought about it until I thought about it. So what I mean by that is, I'm a failed fiction writer. I spent 10 years trying to write short stories and couldn't sell them. I have a master's in fiction writing from NYU, which is pre-unemployment. I had the greatest fiction teachers, Gordon Lish and Russell Banks and Margaret Atwood. And anybody should be able to write a fucking short story based on the instructors I had. And I just have like a box of rejection notes. Nice ones, hand typed from the New Yorker, and that shit. And at a certain point, I wouldn't stop. I just kept going. I took 10 years, and then somebody had some tapes of the McKee course. A guy named Richard Saperstein, who's still in the business, and I listened to them, and I was like, oh, okay. And I wrote a screenplay, and I sort of followed it out to Los Angeles. But so I'm not a cinephile. I just wanted to tell stories, and I couldn't do it that way. And screenplay turned out to be easier. They're easier than short stories. Short stories are fucking hard. So then suddenly this gets in that conversation. But I had never been in that. Like Ron had. Like for Ron, there was a real thing because, Ron had that really weird experience, which we all forget about, which is, I think Apollo won Best Picture, but Ron wasn't nominated for director. Do you remember that weird thing?
Yes. Right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, like, he's familiar with this, right? And also because he's grown up around it and as an actor. And I'm like, oh, this part is new. Oh, they have Oscar parties. Oh, I'm invited, right? So it's funny because then you go to this brunch, which is the nominees brunch, and the speed with which you go from it's an honor to be nominated to please God, don't let me lose in front of 1 billion people is like, boom. You're like, oh, wait, now I want to have this.
Oh my God.
But it was great because, I got to go. My late wife was with me. Her father had won an Oscar at the same age for Deer Hunter.
Wow. For what? For
producing. He's a guy named Barry Spikings, and he was actually chairman of EMI many years ago.
Oh
and
my
he made
God, how incredible.
Amazing. He's like Tender Mercies and Deer Hunter and Man Who Fell to Earth. And I got to thank my mom and my other mom who raised me, and my dad, and acknowledge them while they were still alive. And that's great. And it's like a finish line. There aren't a lot of them in Hollywood, and God knows it doesn't last. I mean, literally 3 days later, a Batman versus Superman got shut down and Ron's off of Alamo. And I called him and he goes, well, at least we know it isn't personal. Like, you know what I mean? Like nothing sticks. So it's nice to have a thing.
These days, very few movies penetrate because there's just such an inundation of content. But that movie penetrated in a way that it became a meme before there were memes, right? Like that concept of like A Beautiful Mind and the numbers and these visuals that you guys really invented became a thing that people still describe as that genius moment when you're like, it all comes together. And it managed to sort of survive and still does past the moment. Often a lot of these Oscar films, they go away for one reason or another. You know, I was talking to a producer who said, I wish we could vote on the Oscars 10 years after the films came out because they would probably be different at times. But I think that A Beautiful Mind would be one that we still revere and honor, which is part of the purpose of this podcast, reminding us of what great film is. Why? Why do you think? Do you have any theories?
I think everybody was on their game, and that's terrific, you know, and sometimes you just get to be part of a team where everybody's playing at their best, which I really think is the truth of that movie. And I think that ultimately it did the thing that for me is what we strive to do, which is to communicate and actually teach without anybody noticing. My late wife she was British, and she used to say, you have to sugar the pill. A Beautiful Mind is actually a window into the experience of schizophrenia. It's not a window into schizophrenia. People don't have visual hallucinations like that. You know, I mean, when if you're suffering from schizophrenia, you're more likely to hear your dog tell you what Jesus wants, but your cognitive and your capacity is shifted. So you actually think it makes sense that your dog is talking. You can't do that to an audience. You can't get them to change their expectation of what is real. So you have to change the view of what is real. You have to create the idea of a stable world that is then pulled out from under someone like that proverbial rug. And I think that the thing that has been extraordinary for me about having been part of A Beautiful Mind is, to this day, people say, my grandfather, my son, my mother, my uncle, my friend had schizophrenia, and I didn't understand it until I saw that movie. So thank you. And that's the win. The other win's great. You know, I got it somewhere. It's propping up something. But that's the win. And I think that's why it abides, because it's real human emotional connection and the opportunity to see people you imagine as different, as just like you.
I'm kind of tearing up again because I think that is the ultimate purpose, right? Like if you can sort of change hearts and minds while entertaining and people not even really realize that that's what's happening, that is like the ultimate in my mind for what we do. And so I love that. You're absolutely right. That totally resonates. And you should just be so proud. You're such a talent and you're such a delight. And I was so happy to meet you and talk to you about this. Thank you so much.
It's very nice to be here. It's nice to talk
you are amazing. I hope to meet you in person one day.
I'd love that.
Okay. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
I'm only here tonight because of you. You are the reason I am. You are all my reasons.
How cool is Akiva Goldsman? I just loved hearing the entire story from his perspective. And it was really like a tale of everyone being at the height of their energy and enthusiasm and talents. Like it was so obvious that Russell Crowe was like really there for it and really inhabited the role. And Akiva Goldsman was such a young talent and was just like so psyched to be there. And Ron Howard was at the height of his powers. I love hearing stories like this when like everyone is doing their best work.
Absolutely. And they probably weren't such big, or at least to the level that they are now, such big celebrities or big names.
Right.
They probably were just able to work so freely. And it was so fascinating to hear these people who now are household names talking about how they were, you know, really boots on the ground trying to figure this thing out and so excited to push forward a movie. And who knew at the time how big this movie would become.
I know. It was like it won Best Picture and it won Best Actor. Jennifer Connelly won Best Supporting Actress.
Jennifer Connelly won, yes. Who's so good in this. I mean, it's so cool to see actors like this that now, you know, they're a little bit untouchable these days, and just seeing them, how they began and the roles that kind of define their careers. Yeah. Pretty impressive.
But I love remembering because like Russell Crowe at this time, he was like going from Gladiator to this and really was the biggest star in Hollywood. And I just loved him so much in this era. So it was so nice to be able to have that.
It was amazing. I also, we glossed over this, but they did win Best Picture, I believe. They won 4 Academy Awards. So Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actress for Jennifer Connelly.
Yes.
Which is amazing. And they were nominated for 4 other categories. So it's pretty unbelievable.
You know, Vanessa, the other thing I wanted to sort of talk about was like how our little pod has just been growing over the last few weeks. Our Nancy Meyers episode was like absolutely a hit. People loved it so much, hearing about the holiday. The Joey Pants episode, if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to that, go and listen, because Joey Pants had just the best stories about The Fugitive and Midnight Run and like making those movies.
They were so good.
Fun. It's so fun to hear people respond to these episodes and sort of discover the pod, because it's just like, I feel like we're getting all new listeners.
Yeah, go subscribe. You never know the episodes you're missing. We've had some really incredible people on, and I'm so happy it's starting to get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, it's been so fun. All right, guys. Well, that was another fun one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe is so important to us. And go get that merch.
Yeah, go get that merch. StayGoldFeatures.com. Hit the merch tab and go follow us on Instagram. Check out our different clips of different previous episodes and keep following along, guys.
Guys, don't forget to stay gold.
Stay gold.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.